Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. Wrapped up the baseball season with Bob Przybylo. You can see that, I guess the final installment of the Stickball Report. I think there's going to be some things to come with all the transfer portal news on the softball side of things. But once again, congratulations to Patty Gasso and the Oklahoma softball program, a fourth consecutive national championship. A lot of stuff has been going on over at football camp with Brent Venables camp underway. 2 sessions in, another one coming up on Thursday. We'll be back out there. We have basically broke down everything that happened at Thursday and Saturday last week with Josh McQuestion. You can see that right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. I thought the one from Saturday was really good too.
How 24 guys?
24 guys.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
We went through. So you're the video guy. You got a lot of good clips.
There was a lot of really good players to get clips of. So looking forward to Thursday. Jaden O'Neal, one of the highly touted 2026 quarterbacks, expected to be in attendance. And a little bit of sad news, as it sounds like it's going to be Kevin Sperry's final camping session with Oklahoma as I guess going into his senior season. He'll be headed out to the Elite 11 stuff in Los Angeles next week to compete and maybe get the crown like Jackson Arnold did. I know there was a little bit of a story on that today with On 3. So big day for Oklahoma football. We have the schedule with kickoff time.
Sort of,
kind of. You have an idea of when everything is going to be. So everything that we had known up to Tuesday was basically we had the 3 non-con games to begin the season, opening against Temple on Friday, August 30th. That is at 6 o'clock on ESPN. September 7th against Houston on SEC Network at 6:45. The week after against Tulane is 2:30 kickoff on ESPN or ESPN2. And then we had the OU Texas game that had obviously been moved to 2:30. First time in 17 years that thing had been moved off of
2017.
2017, that's right. 15 of the last 17 had been at 11 a.m. They're moving that thing back to 2:30 down at the annual showdown at the Cotton Bowl. That will be on ABC, ESPN. So this is where things get interesting, George. We now have kickoff times for the rest of the SEC schedule. At least have an idea. So kind of explain, it says 2:30, 3:30, or 5 to 7 p.m. That's basically the window of kickoff time, correct?
Right. So just to start here, the one official time that we got out of this announcement is the main time, which is 1:30 p.m. on November 2nd. And that is obviously going to be probably the ESPN Plus or SEC Network Plus. It's going to be a pay-per-view game, basically. The other ones, they basically have afternoon or night kickoff windows. And so Oklahoma, or early kickoff windows. And so you see here it says, like for Tennessee, for example, 2:30 to 3:30 or 5 to 7 p.m. So that's a flex game. So they are either going to play sometime between 2:30 and 3 o'clock and 3:30, or they could play between 5 and 7 p.m. So we'll find out that I think a couple weeks in advance of the game. It kind of depends on obviously how the teams are doing, but you know that the game is not going to be at 11 a.m., which is kind of the big takeaway from all of this is you look down the schedule here. South Carolina and Ole Miss are the only games that could kick off at 11 a.m. They could also kick off at noon, and you and I have talked about that, Eddie. There's a big difference between kicking off at 11 a.m. and noon. So that's kind of the big part is there's only going to be one home game that's going to be in that early time slot. The rest of these, as you can see, Auburn, it's going to be sometime in the afternoon between 2:30 and 3:30. And then the final 3 games, as you look down here, at Missouri, Alabama, and at LSU are all kind of those flex windows where they're going to play either in the afternoon between 2:30 and 3:30 or be a night kickoff between 5 and 7. So pretty exciting because, again, like you look at the schedule, I saw someone tweet out the last time Oklahoma played, 2 or less 11 a.m. kickoffs in a season was 2017.
Right. I know Tyler Bacobus. That was like one of the big things that he had put out this morning. You look back at 2022, you had 6 11 a.m. kickoffs. 2023, you had 7 11 a.m. kickoffs, including the 10 a.m. kickoff in Provo, which was an experience in and of itself. Now you're looking at that number being whittled all the way down to 2 windows for 11 a.m., which isn't too bad.
Yeah, and again, it very well could kick off at noon, and that's kind of what the SEC wants to do, and that's why they have this new deal with ESPN where they kind of can stagger those kickoffs. Like I said, it's not like when you see the 2:30 to 3:30 time slot, it doesn't mean 2:30 or 3:30. it means anytime between 2:30 and 3:30, so they could stagger the games and have multiple big games going at once. Same with 11 a.m. and between 11 a.m. and noon, you could technically kick off at like 11:30 or 11:45, which again would be a big difference. And if all of a sudden you're kicking off at noon, gives people an extra hour to either sleep, drink more, party, whatever it is that you want to do before the game. That's kind of the idea behind this. And so I think that that's kind of the exciting part. Again, I know that we don't have the exact kickoff times, and I saw some people complaining about that on Twitter, mainly Stuart, Stuart Mandel.
You have an idea. Well, he's a loser.
Yeah, and I'm just like, but this is way better than when, it feels like every year the back half of the schedule, you get that Monday, what did they call it, the time?
The flex window or
flex
whatever.
Window, and it's
because there was multiple times that you would always be in that spot where, we're going to wait another week instead of the 2-week advance.
And so you're finding out, 6 or 7 days before the game what time the actual game is, and it's just like that's just a pain in the butt. Whereas this, now you at least know, hey, when OU goes to Auburn, you could technically fly in Saturday morning, instead of having to get there Friday night. Like if you're planning to go on the road, or if you're coming into town for a home game, you know that, hey, the game is going to be sometime, after 2:30 and not, early in the morning. And I think that that's a huge benefit for fans.
It is a little bit weird looking at the schedule and realizing that, obviously with the SEC and the TV contract agreement with ESPN, everything's moving over from CBS.
Yep.
That's the one, like, I guess, SEC feel type thing that we're not going to get.
Yeah,
going into this new conference.
And I still think, though, that they want that 2:30 kick to kind of be that prime game. Now, I do think that you'll have certain matchups that they're going to want to be at night where you get, Kirk Herbstreit on the call with Chris Fowler and those sort of situations. But you're still going to see, like, OU Texas. We talked about this. They want it at 2:30 because that's still going to be the primetime window for Oklahoma for the big game of the week. And obviously Oklahoma and Texas, I think the way the schedules are going to line up in the future, or they're not going to try and schedule a lot of big matchups that same weekend. So it's great for Oklahoma. And again, you look at these, that first game against Tennessee, imagine it kicking off at 7 p.m. In Norman. First SEC home game.
September 21st,
awesome.
too. The weather started to turn a little bit, we hope.
It'd be great. And you look down at the end here, I think these 2:30, or 5 to 7 flex windows for Alabama, LSU. If Oklahoma's, sitting at, 9-2, I would expect that LSU game to probably be at night. Same, they're 8-2 or whatever it is, and Alabama's coming to town.
The legend that is Baton Rouge at night on a Saturday
Exactly,
night.
and you'd love to see it already say night game for that, but I do think that it's probably, leaning towards that, especially if Oklahoma's having a good season. Again, some of this will play into how well OU's playing, but still, I think it's a huge win for fans to have, at least these windows and kind of know, and then also see that there's really only 2 possible 11 a.m. kickoffs, and there's a chance they don't even play any 11 a.m. kickoffs, which I have no idea, how far back that goes. I can't remember the last time OU didn't play an 11 a.m. kick.
Unbelievable. You look at the schedule, it is definitely a bear of a schedule. That thing hasn't changed since, I think we got the initial dates and opponents and all that kind of stuff, but it does start to feel like they're moving into this thing that is the Southeastern Conference. Obviously, that announcement coming up on July 1, well, not necessarily an announcement, but the celebration or the welcoming party, whatever you want to call. It's going to be kind of interesting. We've been, I guess, loosely around some of the players here over the course of the last week, being out at Brent Venables football camp. It's good to see a bunch of those guys. I know that Nick Anderson stuck out just from an advancement physically of what we remember him as a year ago. Even David Stone here over the last couple of months has started to, I think it was kind of the talk of spring football, him getting over the 300-pound mark. Certainly looks the part when you're talking about that. Makari Vickers, Kerry reminds me as well. Somebody that definitely looks the part. So it feels like football's here. We're kind of in that.
We're getting close.
We're in that wait and see period. We were talking to Bob on the stickball report. You get through about the next month, and then it's SEC Media Days in the middle of July, and then all of a sudden, those 2 weeks really kind of evaporate the summer, leading into August and the start of camp.
And I think that the SEC has done a really good job of almost treating this like the NFL, where the NFL really doesn't take a break. They try to control the media even in the offseason with, spreading out OTAs, owners meetings, rookie minicamp, whatever it is. you're seeing that the SEC wants to stay in the news. And so what do? They release the TV times in June, mid-June. They're going to have a huge party on July 1st where they're streaming, Paul Feinbaum from Austin on, I believe, June 30th, and then from Norman on July 1st. And then 2 weeks after that, we're going to be in Dallas at SEC Media Days. And then 2 weeks after that, it's this beginning of fall camp. So you're seeing the SEC kind of take on this NFL model of they always want to be in the news. And I think it's really smart. And I think they're taking the same approach when it comes to scheduling. The NFL, as we know, they release their kickoff times and their schedule way in advance, usually in May. I think the SEC kind of and ESPN too. It's very much a network thing as well. But yeah, man. I mean, if we get through this next month, and even this next month, it's going to be busy. You still have football camp, like you said, this week on Thursday, next week on Tuesday and Thursday, I believe.
Also have Kevin Sperry headed out to the Elite 11 next week, which will be fun.
And then you have the July 1st party, like we said. You kind of get about a week or two off with 4th of July, which is going to be fun. And then, like I said, once you get to media days, it's the same thing when, Oklahoma was in the Big 12. Once you get to media days, you're like, okay, it's here. And I think even now it's starting to feel like, oh, it's really almost here with the schedule release.
It definitely it feels close. I know that this has been kind of like even July 1 has been almost 2.5 years in the making, just in terms of the initial announcement that came out when we had gotten back from Big 12 Media Day, and then all of a sudden Oklahoma was moving into the SEC alongside Texas. It's definitely upon us. One more time, if we want to pull up the schedule, we'll just kind of go back over it in terms of kind of what the future beholds as Temple, Houston, Tulane, Tennessee. Still going to be a lot of fun. Even Auburn being that first kind of venture out into SEC territory, 2:30, 3:30, or 5 to 7 kickoff. And then, obviously, the Cotton Bowl, October 12th, is going to be exciting. Shane Beamer returns to Norman on October 19th. Oklahoma's first trip to the Grove might be a little bit of an earlier start than people
I know some people,
imagined.
that's the one time that people have kind of been like, they wish
it was a little bit later.
Yeah,
I get that. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people. It feels like the hub for Oklahoma fans is going to be up in Memphis, about an hour and 10 minutes north of Oxford come October 19th. Or October 26th, excuse me, and then you get the main trip. Never sleep on the Black Bears, and then the final 3 games of the season, I think, is really going to kind of tell the tale of the season as far as
it could really define. I think the season. I mean, like I said,
100%.
They could be walking into that sitting at 7-2 or 6-3 and having a chance to go on a run there to maybe make a push for the playoff. Again, like you and I've said, 9-3, 10-2. Probably gets Oklahoma in with that schedule. So
I think it'd be a phenomenal, first run through the SEC. I think that is kind of the ceiling on this thing. I don't think that you're going to look up and Oklahoma's going to go 13-0 in the first year.
No, and we're hoping to on the YouTube page have people on from each site. I know On3 has a site for I think almost all of those SEC teams. We want to in July,
particularly Oklahoma's opponents.
Right, Oklahoma's opponents, and kind of preview those games, see where those programs are at, and also kind of get some info. I mean, where to go in Auburn, where to go in Oxford. LSU, all of those things, I think is going to be fun. So hopefully we can schedule that out sometime in July to have some of those folks on.
I only know 2 things of Oxford, Mississippi. It's chicken on a stick, which is I've heard legends of, sold at an Exxon gas station right outside of the city.
I've never even heard of that.
Well, I'm well cultured.
Yeah, you've done your research.
Much more well cultured than you. Lake boy. You're a lake guy,
I am a lake guy.
That's something that we went over when you skipped out of town on us.
Shout out my girlfriend having a lake house.
Yeah, that's still awaiting my invite, but that's okay. Busy July 4th. Keep it in mind, though, moving forward. Labor Day.
You're welcome.
4-day weekend with Oklahoma opening
on Friday
the season
night.
on Friday night, which I still think that we will celebrate accordingly.
Yes.
All right, very good. That is the Oklahoma football schedule with kickoff times. It was good to get that kind of out of the way. That was like the final, I guess, summer barrier in between this and SEC Media Day.
Yeah.
And it's good to at least have an idea of where you're going to be going to some of these places.
It's way better than having this 6-day window that it seems like every single game for OU the last 6 games of the year for the last 10 years it was like it's a 6-game window.
And it had kind of become a little bit of an old joke, a little bit of a sick joke that no matter what they announced, it was going to be 11 or 7, right, or maybe even a 2:30. But for the most part, you knew that you probably needed to get up early
Yeah.
on game days.
7:11 a.m. kicks last year is just
It's insane.
ridiculous.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And not to mention you had a 10 a.m. kickoff in Provo. Although the sunset coming up over, or the,
It was
the
nice.
sun rising
Yeah.
coming over
Yeah,
the
it was
mountains,
cool.
it was a cool experience. We don't have to worry about that anymore, though. I don't think they have too many mountains in Oxford or Auburn or Columbia or Baton Rouge. Well, they might have some. I don't know.
I have no idea.
I think there was a couple people
Not
that
a geography
gone
guy.
through the ski slopes of Baton Rouge, but they probably also got suspended for that as well. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you right back here on the SoonersScoop.com YouTube page.